It is hard to deny that the FRS BOZ is an amazing platform with great handling, sporty looks, with amazing balance and lightness. But the FA20 is something to be undesired. It just kind of falls flat when you need it the most. And it isn't really known to be the most reliable either. So what will it cost you to make this platform a little closer to perfect? So my car has been K-swapped for about a year and a half now. And probably one of the most frequent questions I get asked all the time, if I'm at the track or car meet, online, is how much did this cost? So in this video, I'm gonna break it down piece by piece, what it cost me. I know they say K24s are cheap, but it's everything around it that starts to make it expensive. A lot more expensive than it looks. It kind of falls in the same trap as LS swaps. People always say you can get LS for $500, and trust me, it's gonna cost you a lot more $500 to do an LS swap. Same thing with this. So in this video, the way the breakdown is gonna be is this is for a NA swap, not turbo, not supercharger, not built engine, just essentially the bare minimum of what it takes to put the K24 in your car running. And I'm going by today's prices. This is August 2023. Things were cheaper a year ago than they are going to be next year. So yeah, this is today's prices. Example, the K-Power swap kit was like $1,000 cheaper when I bought it. So yeah. There's also a lot of things that you might want to do to the engines before you put it in, like refreshing up, redoing time and change, replace some gasket seals and all that maintenance stuff. I'm also not going to include that because each swap will vary of what you need or don't need or what you end up doing, because you can nickel and dime that to death. That can be a snowball effect of making the costs vary a lot considering how much extra stuff you do to the engine before you put it in. This breakdown also isn't going to account for tools and label. So this is if you're doing it yourself and you only have simple tools, which for the most part you don't need anything too fancy. Biggest thing is a engine lift, and mostly it's maybe a cutting wheel. You definitely need a cutting wheel. This is also assuming you already have a car, a FRS, BOZ, doesn't matter which one. It's all the same. I don't care if the engine's blown or still good. Still good. That means something you can sell later. First, we're going to start off with obviously the biggest bulk of the cost, big money item, which is the K-Power Industries Complete 86 Swap Kit. This essentially comes with almost everything you need to do the swap. Almost. Maybe 95% of it. This kit, it comes with a lot of stuff. Like a lot of stuff. Like they send you boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff. And yeah, it comes with stuff like auto mounts, adapter plates, clutch, flywheel, oil pan, wiring, intake, gaskets, drive shaft, wiring, ECU, fuel wheels, more adapter plates. It's just, yeah. Intake manifold, the exhaust manifold, header. So a lot of stuff comes in this package. And it's the reason it's very expensive. So the total price for the K-Power kit is $9,995. Woo! Almost 10 grand for a swap kit. The thing you gotta keep in mind is most of these parts are well designed, well engineered, and it's all, for the most part, plug and play, which is very hard to find that in a company that will do a 100% plug and play kit that doesn't involve very little modifications, welding, and other stuff. So yeah, it is expensive, but you get a lot. You get a lot for it. You can also buy most of the stuff individually, so you can kind of piece it together as you go. There's also other companies like TF that does adapter kits and swap kits, so you can do various stuff, which I'm not gonna break that down because it can go all over the place. Okay, the next thing on the list, which is the K24 itself, which is probably the hardest thing on the list to kind of break down and kind of get a good price range of, because the cost of it can vary a good bit, because you can find them in junkyards for pretty cheap, or find them used on Marketplace, Craigslist, and so on, or you can find them on eBay, or even from JDM importers, which that's where I got mine in. I got mine from JDM Orlando. So it was a used low miles K24A. I know we all have that buddy who said he's got his engine for like $200 from John, from his buddy, but we all don't know John. And yeah, you can find them used, cheap, in a junkyard, but you don't know the condition of these engines. They could be good, or they could be a shit pile, and you end up having to spend just as much money into them to make a good engine out of it, or to freshen it up, rebuild it up. It might need rings, bearings, might smoke like a freight train, so you can spend just as much money on that engine to get it reliable, good. Which these engines are, they're pretty robust. They can handle a lot of shit. I paid about $900 with all said and done for the engine and shipping to get my engine. I had to do that twice because I might have bought the wrong one the first time. So don't do that. Which is easy to do if you're buying a JDM one, K24A. There's two different variants. Make sure you get the right one. So yeah. And today, looking on eBay, I'm finding engines from $800 to $1,200 ish range. So not too bad. And on some of the JDM importer sites, like JDM California, JDM Orlando, and there's a bunch of others. I didn't go through them all. I can find them as little as $850 to $1,300 ish. Of course, they can go a lot higher. But for this breakdown, I'm gonna call it $1,300. I'm gonna go on kind of the higher end one, just for safety, because the price is gonna go up anyway. So I might as well go on the higher end of the scale. So what is next on the list? Another major thing you're gonna need is the K20 Type S oil pump. You need the oil pump, and you also need the windage tray and the little timing chain, little guide, and a few of the bolts and stuff. Which this is something you can piece together off eBay, or you can buy it off the K-Power Industry site for $400. The thing to note about the pump is you have to trim it. It's not a direct fit, so you will have to cut it. So if you don't want to cut yourself, yeah, you can spend $400 on K-Powers. Also, there's also other places where you can get it that's pre-cut, or you can piece it together on eBay, and probably for about $300 for the whole thing. But you will have to do the trimming, cutting yourself, which I did. A pretty simple part that a lot of people miss or kind of push off is the flywheel bolts. You need a specific part number from Honda of the flywheel bolts. That's the exact right size. They can't be too long, or they can't be too short, which are the Honda part number blah 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 blah. Insert here. Yeah, you need these flywheel bolts. Another thing, yeah, you can find them off eBay or maybe a parts store for probably a little bit cheaper, or you can get them off the K-Power site for 55 bucks, which is kind of expensive for some bolts, not gonna lie. You're gonna need the right size accessory belt, which you can find for 40 bucks on K-Power site. Of course, you can find this elsewhere. Just make sure you get the correct one for your engine. You're gonna need a K20 starter. The K24 starter will not work unless you do a little bit of trimming on your adapter plate. I've heard some people doing that with success, but if you don't want to do that, you have to get a K21. I got mine from Rock Auto. I got a Denso one for $134. Not too bad, and it's been pretty good. Haven't had any issues out of it. You're going to need a RSEC Type S cam gear, which is, it should say RBC 50 degree cam gear on it. You can find these on eBay for about $60. You can get them on K-Power site, but they're like a lot more expensive, So yeah, you're going to need a EP3 idler puller kit from a Civic EP3. You can get a used one, or there's one thing you can piece together, or you can just go on eBay and buy a generic off-brand one. That's what I did, like 50 bucks, and it's been working fine. Also comes with a belt, so you can kind of knock that other belt off your price list if you want, or just have a spare. I ended up losing my belt, I think, on one of my test drives when I first started this car. So yeah, I'm glad I had a spare belt. Came in handy. Next is hoses. You're going to need radiator hoses. You're going to need a Daco 71718. I got this off Rock Auto for about 12 bucks. Pretty cheap, not bad. And the bigger hose, which is a Gates 23383. Also got that off Rock Auto for 30 bucks. Now the swap kit does come with a lot of gaskets and things, but I couldn't remember if it came with the upper coolant water neck gasket. I don't think it did, so I think I had to buy this. I found this one at TF Works for $4.50. So yeah, one of those things might as well go and buy. Like, I want to say ahead of time I ended up buying a lot of stuff like intake manifold gaskets, header gaskets, and I didn't end up needing them because the kit ended up coming with them. I wasn't sure what all it came with, so I have extras, which isn't a bad thing. Okay, those are the main components you need to get the swap done. But you're gonna need oil, so fluids, coolant. So you gotta add that stuff into it. You know, let's say an oil change, what, 50 bucks, 40 bucks ish, depending what type of oil you use. You gotta do transmission fluid because your transmission has to come out and go back in, so might as well reservice everything. Which that can be 100 bucks to 150 bucks to do good trans fluid. Coolant, or use water, depending on what you're doing. So that can be, let's say, $200 for fluids, give or take. Okay, now we got all your parts, all your fluids. You're gonna need a tune. Now the kit does come with a base map tune, which you can run the car with it. I drove with it, no problems. But you are gonna want to get the car dyno tuned. It is recommended. So that can cost, you know, it can cost as little as 400 bucks up to $600. Just depends on your tuner and if you're getting more than one tune. Like example, I got a E85 tune as well, so essentially 2 tunes, which ended up costing me, I think, 800 bucks. I ended up spending on a tune, but I'm gonna call it 600. Now that we've had fluid, dyno time, we're at 12,000 $800, so just shy of 13 grand. If you add a miscellaneous cost in there for other random things that you might not see or forgot about, example, I'm gonna need Loctite, I'm gonna need RTV, stuff like that. There's definitely gonna be a tool you need. A part is gonna end up breaking, or you have to replace something that you don't account for. So throw an extra $200 from miscellaneous, and we'll be at about 13 grand for everything. That's a safe number, I guess. Speaking of things that you didn't account for, I gotta backtrack a little bit, because if you go with the JDM engine version, the K24A, you gotta change out the whole water pump housing, which is essentially the whole accessory piece that goes on the side of the block, which the water pump, the alternator, and the tensioner pulley all have to be changed to the USDM version of it, because the JDM version is slightly different, which you can run that stuff. But you can run the JDM stuff. It should work. The only thing I'm not 100% positive not is the alternator plug. I don't know if it's the same. So I don't know if the plug's different. Example, if the K24 Swap engine harness will plug into the JDM alternator. That's the only thing I'm not too sure about. But the reason you want to go to the USDM one is if something breaks, you need parts, you can get it easier. You can get that stuff easier. Example, alternator sits out and you can go to AutoZone and buy a new USDM alternator. If the JDM one sits out on you, you gotta wait until one ships from Japan or somebody has one. Which is what I ended up having to do on my swap. I had to buy a whole new water pump assembly, which I found one on eBay for about 150 bucks, which includes a water pump. And I also had to buy a alternator, which was $176. So that stuff adds up. So it's what, 300 something dollars, 3 something. So yeah, if you're going the JDM route, you can add an extra 320 to 350 bucks on top of that $13,000. You know, of course we can do this all day. You know, we can snowball it. Example, on my swap I refreshed as much as I could, like all the timing chain stuff, all the guides, the tensioners, replaced as much gaskets and seals as I could, spark plugs, water pump, thermostat, coil packs. You know, I've replaced a lot of stuff. So granted, my kit was roughly $1,000 cheaper than it is today, so I still probably spent around 13 grandish for mine. So I'm still saying about 13 grand is what you want to have in the bank ready if you're going to do this. Of course it might cost you more, it might cost you less. Another thing to think about is if you do this to a good running FRS BOZ, you can take your old engine and sell it, and they're worth a good bit of money. You know, people will spend a lot of money for these engines because there's not a lot of them out there. This is the only car that has them, so people end up charging a lot of money for a good FA20. So you can get up to as little as $3,000 to like $4,000 in that range. You can steal your engine for that price. So you can take that money and put it back into your cost. Also, you can do what I did is I sold a lot of the parts. I had a lot of aftermarket parts like header, intake, reflash ECU, up pipe, down pipe, and other miscellaneous parts that I was able to sell off the engine, which I think I made like another $1,000 off of. So that's $4,000 I was able to put back into my car. Okay, that is my cost breakdown for the K24 Swap. Hope you got something out of it. if you plan on doing a swap, I hope this helps you out to give you a better idea of what to plan for and how much it's really going to cost you. Yeah, and I also have a bunch of videos on the swap. So if I'll put a link to my playlist and a link to essentially the full build, starting from tearing down the engine, refreshing it up, to swapping it in, to tune, whole 9 yards. That's all on my channel. So yeah, if you're doing the swap, you definitely want to check those out. Very informative. But that answers that question. What does this cost? Now, to answer the second, probably most frequent question, is a little easier. Is it worth it? I'd say yes. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Peace.